Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Season 10 of the League of Extraordinary Trainers. This is the Ultra Ball Conference I am in this time around, and our opponent for Week 5 is the Hudsonville Hypno, led by Moshiman, or CM from the LET Discord. Alright, so he brought Talonflame, Alolan Dugtrio, Sharpedo, Uxie, Toxtricity, and Virizion. Meanwhile, I brought Xurkitree, Vileplume, Fletchinder, Dottler, Swoobat, and Walrein. So one thing about this team is that ever since the draft, that Virizion has scared the absolute crap out of me. And I'm still not entirely sure how I want to deal with it. I actually wanted to draft Talonflame to deal with it, but of course, he drafted it first. So I took Talonflame's pre-evolution, Fletchinder, to kind of do that, because, I mean, it's still Gale Wings, it gets Defog, so it's still able to do that portion of its job without having to be fully evolved. And it's still a Fire Flying type, which counters Virizion pretty good. So that's one of the things that I have for this. I am packing Swoobat as well to kind of help with that setup. And Vileplume should be able to wall everything that the Virizion was doing. Let's see how well this goes. See what my opponent decided to bring out first. And we are starting off with Uxie, which is what I would kind of predict. Uxie is usually a pretty stellar stealth rocker. But it's also usually pretty passive. So we can try and set up on it, it looks like is what I was going for, I think. So one nasty plot, and that gives us a +4 boost to our special attack stats. And we are knocking off Swoobat's Focus Sash, which wasn't needed. It's unfortunate, but that's alright. Because we're still at +4 and hitting with a super effective move. Even on Uxie, this should deal a significant amount of damage and hopefully KOing it, but I don't remember how this battle went. Just so you guys know, all of my LET battles are going to be a few weeks behind on the videos, and all of my comments are coming from when I am actually going back to make these videos. So I've already done this battle, doesn't mean I remember everything about it. And unfortunately, the Uxie did survive and KO one of my answers to the Virizion. One of the answers to a physically offensive Virizion, not a Calm Mind one. So if it was a Calm Mind Virizion, it wasn't much help to begin with. But now the question becomes, what do I want to send in against this thing? We already know it has knockoff, and it probably has Stealth Rocks. And we decided to go with Fletchinder, I think mostly because Fletchinder was probably going to be faster. And we didn't want anything to risk the knockoff. Not to mention we scare this thing out with priority if it's going to want to stay in. So we'll see what my opponent decides to do about this, because I can stop him from getting Stealth Rocks up if that's what his play is. Not to mention that Fletchinder will just clear them if he tries to do it anyways, which I'm sure he's aware of. Okay, so we do go first. We KO it with U-turn. So Fletchinder manages to get a first kill for this team. Or for this match, which is hilarious. For my team, at least. But now comes the problem of me sending in a Pokemon and my opponent being able to send in whatever he thinks will be its best counter right off the bat. So not great. It's one of the reasons why I hate using momentum moves like Volt Switch and U-Turn for KOs, but it is what it is. So it looks like we decided to go with our tank Vileplume. Probably a good idea, because the Vileplume can probably take an attack from any one thing on this team. Not to mention that Vileplume has all sorts of utility moves that it can use no matter what Pokemon comes out on the field. That is the only problem Pokemon for Vileplume. The issue, though, is that I don't really have anything to swap into that, probably. I think Walrein would have been my best bet for that. And if I do decide to stay in, it might just be because I'm predicting him to predict the switch. Granted, if he even does predict the switch, I mean, his move is still going to be Brave Bird, which is going to deal a lot of damage to most of my team. The only one it wouldn't deal as much to would be the Xurkitree, but we also don't want Xurkitree to take much damage, because Xurkitree would basically be acting as my win con for this entire thing. Nope, we did take the Brave Bird to the face. I'm guessing this was probably my physical Vileplume, the only reason it survived. Or not physical, but physical defense. But we didn't get Effect Spore to go off like I was hoping, probably as well. Probably the other reason why I kept Vileplume in. But Vileplume is also mostly useless at this point. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see what my opponent decides to do about it. He may just go for the next KO on Vileplume. Which, hindsight 2020, would have been better if I could have saved Vileplume. Oh god, a crit. Because we needed that. With how low Vileplume is, though, it probably doesn't matter. And we still didn't get Effect Spore to go off, which is weird. Normally, at least when it comes to my luck, Effect Spore goes off with every other attack. Yep, but we did get the Strength Sap off, so that's probably close to a full heal. Yep, and we lowered its lowered the Dugtrio's attack stat, and now Dugtrio is stuck in against my physically defensive Vileplume. So he probably swapped out thinking I was just going to Sludge Bomb again, or I was going to swap into something that the Dugtrio could take care of. Now the question is I've been given a second lease on life with Vileplume, but it looks like I'm going to just take the chance and just stay with it. Yep, now we've got Toxtricity. I do remember this now, at least part of it. This Toxtricity ended up being far worse for me to deal with than I had originally imagined. And we're about to find out why. So what am I doing with Vileplume? We are staying in. It is using Boom Burst. It is both faster than Vileplume and able to KO it. So, that would lead me to believe that that thing was probably Choice Spect. And if that's the case, I mean, Walrein could come in and try and deal with it, although I think I brought my offensive Walrein for this, so it KO'd my Vileplume. Walrein probably wasn't surviving that Boom Burst either. Alright, so I brought this, I brought this Dottler with a set that I thought would work because of the Power Swap, but Power Swap does not work like I had originally thought it would. What Power Swap does is it only swaps the boosts that a Pokemon might have gotten. So, like, if the opposing Pokemon might have set up on me, then great. But as for actually taking what special attack stat it already has, no, I didn't do that. So it's still stuck with its high special attack stat. But I didn't know that at the time. I only figured that out after this battle. And I don't think my opponent quite knew that either. And I only had room for one attack move on this, and unfortunately I did choose Psychic instead of Bug Buzz. I was regretting that decision right after that switch. Oh boy. Would have been nice had I had both. In fact, if I didn't have Power Swap, I could have had both. But oh well. So we're going to try and keep Dottler alive. And after seeing how much that crunch did, there was no way that Walrein was living anything else, unfortunately. And I didn't have any good way of dealing with it, so stay in, figure out if it's got close combat or not. Because if he doesn't do crunch again, he has to do something else that's a better coverage move. But Sharpedo has low enough defenses that I could possibly KO it from here, especially with my offensive Walrein. And I think that's what I was going for. So we're figuring out that it has close combat. Walrein was pretty useless since I don't think we were getting sticky webs up at any time soon. Just too much offensive pressure on the opposing team, and Dottler was half dead now. Meanwhile, Sharpedo is at +2 for its speed. And I think we're going for scare tactics here. So, part of the thing about this is that we have priority here, and Sharpedo dropped its defense, which was negligible at best already. So while we have priority, we can force the Sharpedo out. The only catch is that if this thing has Aqua Jet, that doesn't really matter. Because if it has Aqua Jet, it's killing Fletchinder with it. But the fact that it just used Protect leads me to believe would have led me to believe that it doesn't have Aqua Jet. Nope, no more Sharpedo. But now Talonflame's back out. And Fletchinder KOs its evolution, which I love the irony of that. I do remember that part. And Dugtrio is back out. So we are actually going to go for Tailwind because we're going to try and get the rest of my team to outspeed the rest of his team. Which the rest of my team is Xurkitree, basically. So priority Tailwind because we're still at full health. And we figure out this thing has Stone Edge, which missed, and it's why you will almost never see me use Stone Edge to begin with. But now that we're twice our own speed, we actually outspeed it, so we can U-turn into something that might tank that Stone Edge better. However, I think I probably would have preferred that the Stone Edge hit the Fletchinder here, because Fletchinder is kind of, I wouldn't say useless, because dear lord, the Virizion would still hate this thing. But we don't need Tailwind for Fletchinder itself. We need Tailwind for something else. Alright, breaking any possible sash this thing might have. And then we're sending in Dottler to take the Stone Edge because we wanted Dottler to feint so we can have a clean switch in for Circuitry. And down Dottler goes. Also a crit. Don't know if that mattered. It might have because it's Dottler with Evilite. But now we've got twice our own speed. So Circuitry will outspeed the Dugtrio unless it's Choice Scarfed for some reason. Although it shouldn't be considering Fletchender already outsped after Tailwind. So we got 2 more turns of Tailwind. We're checking on that. And we need Dugtrio dead. Because if Hypnosis missed, which would boost our speed greatly, of course, but this thing could possibly go for Earthquake then. Although, considering that he just switched, that thing might have been Choice Banded, which would explain why I KO'd the Dottler, and why he used Stone Edge again, instead of predicting a switch. Alright, but now comes in this dreaded Virazin, which we're going to try and put to sleep or boost our speed. My one problem with the strategy of using Blunder Policy and Hypnosis is that the matches, most of the time, actually have a preference for which one happens. And so we missed with Hypnosis, but we got the boost into speed. However, does that mean we're going to KO this thing with Dazzling Gleam? I find it unlikely, given Virazin's disposition towards special defense already. We were close, and thanks to that Swords Dance, it KO'd Circuitry. It might have still KO'd it without the Swords Dance even, but down goes Circuitry. And Virazin has a Life Orb as well. And now we're left with Fletchender, our last man standing. He can get the KO on the Virazin, but at the same time, he could also swap to something else to preserve his differential, probably. The only thing that does come in on this thing might not be able to survive 2 Aerial Aces. I'm not entirely certain. While Fletchender is weaker, I wouldn't say it has an insignificant attack stat, especially with how frail a good portion of his team is. But anyways, we managed to KO the Virazin. Great, except that I don't think Fletchender can take on the rest of this team by itself, especially with that Dugtrio in the back. So that Dugtrio is not as dead as it needs to be for this. The Sharpedo almost is. And then there's this thing. I only put flying moves on I only put Aerial Ace and U-turn on him. I don't have a fire move to deal with this because Fletchender's job was to deal with Virazin and to set things up for my other Pokemon. It only needed Aerial Ace for that and U-turn to get out. So unfortunately we did end up losing this battle 3-0, but with that, at least the Fletchender actually got to see some action and in fact got quite a few KOs just from that battle alone. It was kind of hilarious at the time. Still is, I think. But anyways, so that is another loss for me, which, I gotta remember what my score was at that point. Alright, so we would be at 3 wins and 2 losses at that point. So, not a great record, but it does put us in the middle of the pack at that time. Alright, so with that, I will see you guys with Week 6, where we are fighting the Philadelphia Phantoms. So I'll catch you all next time.